She stays silent. Her eyes are gentle, always ready to understand, to forgive, to give in, to serve, and she doesn't understand why she keeps getting betrayed. She's the one who smiles, agrees, endures, gives, sacrifices, hoping it means something, that someone will see, appreciate, love her for it. But they don't. Worse, those closest to her are the ones who treat her the worst. She asks herself why. She's kind. She never starts fights. She helps everyone. But kindness, when unconscious, is a trap. It's not light, it's a cage. It's not strength. It's a strategy, a sweet one, a quiet one, deadly. This isn't weakness. This is the ancient psychological pattern of the victim archetype. It's not about being powerless. It's not about being angelic. It's a deeply rooted strategy built into the psyche of many women. If I give everything, if I endure, if I sacrifice myself, they'll love me. This is an illusion, a dangerous one. The victim isn't fragile. She's in control, just not in the way we usually define control. Her suffering becomes a currency, a way to remain central, a way to bind people to her pain, a way to feel meaningful, even if it's through tragedy. The victim hides behind a white mask, a smile, kindness, selflessness. But behind it is fear, repressed anger, and the deep belief, I don't matter unless I hurt. She says, I'm such a good person. Why don't they love me? But what she's actually saying is, I'm terrified of being real, of being rejected, so I'll be agreeable. Maybe someone will pick me. She wears the mask of kindness because being herself feels too dangerous. Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The victim isn't a light figure. She's shadow, but not the aggressive kind, the quiet, invisible one. She avoids open conflict, but unconsciously recreates it. She keeps finding herself in relationships where she's abandoned, used, hurt. Why? Because this pain is familiar, and familiar means safe. Not happy, not fulfilling, just known. She suffers in hopes it will give her value. If she's not chosen, at least she's noble. If she's not loved, at least she's patient. She cuts herself to fit the pattern life gave her as a girl. Don't cry, don't scream, be sweet, be nice. And she obeys. But at night, she weeps quietly, because her soul is starving. The victim isn't fragile. She's calculating, without knowing it. Her pain is her leverage. Her silence is her language. Her suffering is how she controls the emotional weather in the room. A woman in victim consciousness keeps repeating the same cycles. A partner who takes her for granted. A friend who drains her. A workplace where she's invisible. A mind full of, why does this keep happening to me? And the most painful truth of all, she's the one creating it. Not because she wants to, but because it's the only script she knows. She's not evil, not broken. She's forgotten by herself. And here's the shift. Suffering might start as sacrifice, but when it becomes habitual, it's no longer noble. It becomes identity, because being real is terrifying. So she stays in pain. At least there, she knows the rules. At least there, she knows her role. And here's the paradox. She holds power, but she hides it behind her brokenness. That's why kind women suffer more. Because what they call kindness is often unconscious fear. A fear of rejection. A fear of being alone. A fear of having needs. So they stay small. So they give too much. So they carry the world on their shoulders, hoping someone will finally notice and say, you've done enough. Now rest. But no one says it. Because the world doesn't reward invisible saints. She learned early that being easy to deal with equals being loved. That staying quiet means being praised. That swallowing anger equals being good. And so, The good girls grow up. They get patted on the head when they give in. They get approval when they don't cause trouble. They get attention, but only when they disappear behind their usefulness. At some point, she forgets who she really is, what she feels, what she wants. An emptiness settles inside her, but she masks it by constantly helping others. She tries, she gives, she comforts, she supports, but the more she gives, the more resentment she feels, because no one gives back. No one asks how she's doing. No one offers warmth in return. It's not a coincidence. It's a system. The good girl syndrome isn't a personality quirk. It's a slow emotional death. The good girl isn't light. She's shadow, but socially approved shadow. Polite, sweet, self-denying. She's afraid of anger, afraid to say no, afraid of being called difficult, afraid that if she shows her real self, people will leave. So she hides. Behind "it's okay," behind "no problem," behind "I'm fine." She doesn't live. She performs. She doesn't express. She anticipates. She doesn't speak. She swallows. And somewhere along the way, she stops feeling. No joy, no pain, just a grey numbness. Because every time she felt something real as a child, they told her, "Don't cry, don't be angry, be a good girl." And she obeyed. She became exactly what they wanted and completely disconnected from herself. Carl Jung wrote that the psyche always pushes toward wholeness, and what's repressed doesn't vanish. It returns as fear, as illness, as toxic relationships, as chronic self-doubt. The shadow doesn't die, it waits. And when the good girl becomes a grown woman, her buried self starts to scream. In dreams, in tears, in a silent feeling that something is deeply wrong. But nothing's wrong with her. What's wrong is the mask she wears. She's not soft. She's repressed. Not selfless, just afraid. Not gentle, just ashamed of her real power. Because under every good girl is a fire, a voice, a wildness, a sacred rage. And that rage is not dangerous. It's necessary. Because it's the force that says, no more pretending, no more disappearing, no more betraying myself for peace. The good girl murdered her trickster, the wild one inside her, the part of her that could rebel, laugh loudly, say no, break the rules, feel deeply, the part that says, I want, I need, I will. She turned her into a ghost, because they told her that girls like that are bad, and she believed them. The good girl doesn't live. She passes tests every day, waiting for a gold star. But life has no teachers, no grades, no reward for betraying your soul in exchange for being liked. The good girl isn't strong. She's scared. She chose comfort over authenticity. But life doesn't bloom in comfort. Life belongs to the woman who chooses herself, even when no one claps. She says, "Why did he treat me like that? I loved him. I gave everything." And inside, silence, heavy, still, like a basement. That's where she buried all the parts of herself she wasn't allowed to be. She was kind, agreeable, understanding. He was cold, detached, distant, sometimes cruel. He could vanish, ignore her tears, say nothing, or worse, and still she stayed, she waited, she hoped, she suffered. Why? Because kind girls often attract executioners. Because kindness, when tied to fear, is a magnet for cruelty. Because what she called love was, in truth, pain she recognized from long ago. Jung taught us this: whatever you repress will return in the form of fate. If she silences her anger, it will show up in the man who screams. If she denies her boundaries, it will show up in the man who breaks them. If she hides her wildness, it will arrive wearing his face. She doesn't choose him for love. She chooses him because her inner world needs a mirror, even if it cracks her open. He is her unconscious, walking, breathing, wounding. This isn't about guilt. It's about understanding the pattern. He's not her punishment. He's her reflection. The voice of everything she repressed, now louder, harsher, outside of her. And her soul says, "Wake up." Not because he's good, but because the pain finally cuts deep enough to feel again. She didn't feel alive in safety, she only felt real in ache. And that's the tragedy. This isn't romance. This is chemistry between a suppressed force and the one who embodies it. She thinks he completes her, but he only activates her trauma. She thinks she's loving, but really, she's trying to redeem herself through him, to prove she's worthy by healing someone who keeps breaking her. She gives more. He respects less. She pleads. He shuts down. She softens. He hardens. And deep down, she believes, this is all I deserve. This is the best I'll get. I can't do better. The cruelest part? He believes the same. Abusers don't choose the strong. They choose the soft, the compliant, the silent. They sense the woman who won't scream, the one who will excuse the first betrayal, then the second, then all of them. Two lost people find each other in the dark. One can't give love, the other doesn't know how to ask for it. And both call it destiny, but it's not destiny, it's repetition. A karmic echo until someone breaks the cycle. She bends until something inside her breaks. And in that breaking, there's something new. It's not rage, it's clarity. One morning she wakes up and knows, I'm done. And that's when the shift begins. Because pain is no longer her home. Because she no longer wants to earn her place. She's tasted her shadow, and instead of running, she embraces it. That moment he loses power, because his power was never real, it was borrowed from her fear. And when the fear dissolves, so does he. You can be kind, but first, be alive. Because kindness without an inner core is not light. It's self-destruction, disguised with a smile. It kills quietly, slowly, almost beautifully. From the very beginning, girls are taught, to be kind is to be lovable, to give in is to be feminine, to endure is to be wise. To understand everyone is to be good. But kindness born from fear isn't kindness. It's survival. It's a desperate deal. I'll be nice and just don't leave me. That's not generosity. It's surrender, not to love, to fear, to expectations, to the constant anxiety of not being enough. She says yes when she wants to scream no. She agrees because she's terrified of rejection. She forgives because she fears being alone. She gives care because she's convinced she must earn her place. That's not kindness. That's pain dressed up as politeness. But strength is quiet. It doesn't demand. It doesn't beg. It simply is. Strength is choosing to be kind, not feeling forced to be. A kind woman without power becomes a target because people sense she won't resist. She won't fight back. She won't leave. She'll endure. And so they pile on. Not always from cruelty, but because they can. True kindness begins with boundaries. You are not required to understand everyone. You are not obligated to forgive everything. You do not need to smile through your pain. You have the right to say, "This doesn't work for me. I don't want this. I'm leaving." And that is kindness to yourself. When you give because you're full, that's love. When you give because you're scared, that's abandonment of self. Kindness without clarity becomes manipulation. Kindness without self-worth becomes martyrdom. Kindness without truth becomes a slow death. Real kindness requires maturity, Because it begins with honesty, and honesty is terrifying. Picture this. She walks into a room apologizing for her presence. Sorry for asking, sorry for needing, sorry for being. She bends, shrinks, disappears, and the world towers over her. Then another woman walks in, still, calm. She doesn't apologize for existing. She's not rude, she just is. And when she is kind, it's powerful. Because it comes from fullness, not fear. It's a gift, not a transaction. This isn't natural. It's a journey, 1,000 broken beliefs, 100 silent nights. The day she says, "I'm tired of being easy," and chooses to be real. A kind woman without power fades away. But a kind woman with power reshapes the world, not because she must, because she wants to. She can say no and stay kind. She can be soft and still have edges. She can love without disappearing. That's not contradiction, that's alignment. That's womanhood without chains. Power doesn't come with thunder. It doesn't shout. It doesn't slam fists or raise voices. It begins with something quiet. A sentence that sounds like this: "I'm not doing this anymore." And it's not anger. It's the silence after the storm. When a woman no longer wants to fight, no longer wants to fix, no longer wants to beg, she's simply tired. And inside that exhaustion, something is born, not fury, not revenge, but truth. She looks in the mirror and doesn't look away this time. No mask, no makeup, no performance, just her. And that becomes the beginning. Up to that point, there was everything. Endless explanations, hoping to be chosen, waiting to be appreciated, people she catered to, situations where she vanished. But now, she comes back, step by step, into her body, into her voice, into her boundaries, into her right to exist. She starts noticing what she feels, and it turns out she's been wanting to leave for a long time, to say something, to stop forgiving, to scream, to rest. But she didn't allow herself, because she was scared of being the bad one, the selfish one, the cold one. But now, she's not scared, because being nice and suffering in silence was worse than being misunderstood. The return of power begins with something small. She says no and doesn't die. She stands her ground and isn't abandoned. She chooses herself and finds she's not empty inside. Where there used to be numbness, now there's a voice, still soft, still shaky, but real. The path from victimhood is not a single leap. It's a long walk. It hurts, because she has to face the truth. I allowed it. I stayed. I said nothing. I made this choice, not because she's stupid, but because she didn't know any better. Now, she does. The victim fades when the woman steps in, not the girl, not the pleaser, the woman, the one who no longer blames, no longer waits, no longer begs. She chooses, she walks, she says yes, she says no. She holds her ground. She heals herself. And then she becomes the healer. Not the one who fixes others, the one who rescued herself. This isn't heroism. This is adulthood. This is the woman who no longer needs saving, because she became her own foundation. She doesn't prove, she doesn't argue, she doesn't beg, she simply exists, and that's enough. You are not a container for pain. You are not a stage for someone else's chaos. You are not the background in someone else's story. You are not here to be erased. You weren't born to be convenient, to constantly adjust, to shrink, to smile when it hurts, to apologize for needing. You were born to be yourself, fully, fiercely, freely. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be kind when it destroys you. You don't have to save those who are sinking and pulling you under with them. You don't have to prove that you deserve love. You already do, right now, as you are. Your suffering is not a punishment. It was the path. You endured heartbreak, silence, betrayal, not because you deserved it, but because you didn't yet know how to say, "This is not love. This is not who I am. This is not my life." But now you know, you can feel, you can see, you can choose, and above all, you can be. Not someone's idea of who you should be, not what they told you to be, but who you are when no one's watching. Who you are when you stop performing. When you stop enduring, you don't become cruel. You become real. When you say this hurts, you're not complaining, you're healing. When you say this doesn't feel right, you're not being dramatic. You're building your truth. When you walk away, you're not abandoning anyone. You're returning to yourself. You don't have to suffer anymore. You don't have to keep replaying that old story. You don't have to carry a burden no one asked you to carry. The world doesn't give awards for silent endurance. It responds to truth. You weren't born to tolerate. You were born to live, to feel deeply, to love without begging, to exist without shrinking, to give without vanishing. Your softness is not weakness. Your sensitivity is not fragility. Your truth is not a threat. You can be strong and still gentle. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can be loving and still say no. This isn't a contradiction. This is maturity. This is wholeness. This is what it means to be a woman who has returned to herself. You are not a victim, not a ghost, not a role. You are a beginning, a home, a voice that no longer hides, and the world feels it. You weren't born to endure. You were born to be. Not in a box, not in a role, in your truth, and now it's time.